on our public hearings tonight. There will be general comments to start the meeting, and then comments on each item that is on for a public hearing. Public gets 2 minutes apiece. Members of community council representing the area where the project is get 5 minutes. We expect some sort of decorum here tonight. Anything else you want to add?
That's good. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
All right. Minutes for the previous meeting from December. I need a motion to approve the minutes or not. Mike has made a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right. We're supposed to use roll call votes for that, really? Okay, well, the roll is everyone passed.
I
Okay.
missed who seconded.
Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, groovy. I don't have a report of the chair. Vice Chair, do you have something sneaky you didn't tell me? Okay. Report of the director. Director.
Good evening. Just a couple things. Per your request, the update for the public safety building, there will be a new RFP released in 2023, so this year. The deputy director of the community and neighborhoods offered to come and provide an update once that RFP is released.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great.
And the other update is that we're going to change the way that we do our presentations, starting with this commission meeting. We tried it at Planning Commission in December, and it worked very well. So hopefully it works similarly well for this format as well. So the staff person will provide the presentation, and then directly after their presentation is concluded, the applicant will get up and provide their presentation. We just ask that you wait with any questions or comments, concerns, until the applicant has concluded their presentation.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. And that's all I have.
All righty. Let's see. So, general public comments. Cindy. There you are. You're so short. Sometimes I miss you.
Yes. My former husband once sent me into a heating duct to make a repair because I'm so small.
Oh, good to know. I might call you.
Yes.
Yes.
I come with news of Preservation Utah. Note that I said he's my former husband. David Ammett is departing to accept a job with UDOT. I sent you the blurb from the E-News. The interim director will be Christiane Kalakar, who has been a member of the executive committee, and Scott Carr, who just graduated from USU. Scott will handle programs going forward. Those programs include the annual home tour in May, which will be in, drumroll, Federal Heights this year. Yes. Expect some publicity. This planning staff will make sure you're aware of any lectures and so forth as they ramp up for this fabulous home tour. It's been many years since the home tour was in
Do you
Federal
know the
Heights.
dates, Cindy?
I think it's May the 20th. If May the 20th is a Saturday, it's May 20th. But I'll confirm all of that. You should receive information in your Dropbox about the new team, but I want to make a few comments about David Ammett. Tonight, I met David Ammett 5 years ago. The first time I saw him, he was at a neighborhood event supporting preservation. He was wearing black glasses with prominent round lens, which gave him the overall appearance of being incarnated as an owl. That first impression was not far off. David would send me emails in the wee hours of the morning. I watched over the years as he moved silently behind the scenes to locate primary resources, identify people who knew the most about the issue, and then get them, sometimes stealthily, to the public meeting. It appeared to be magic if you didn't know about David's efforts, swooshing here and there behind the scenes. And David's ability to write about aspects of preservation which defy linear translation continues to amaze me. I will miss our frequent calls tremendously, but I know that I will see him at meetings about the expansion of I-15. He is truly going from the frying pan into the fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, he is going to be right in the middle of the frying pan there. Appreciate the update. Let's see, now what? Public hearings. Are we moving on to that? Here we are. All righty. First hearing is amendment to new construction and special exception at approximately 237 North Almond Street. We have the staff person is Sarah, and we'll have the applicant speak right after you, Sarah, due to this new format I've been informed of. Okay, good.
Sarah, if you'll click share button on the side. Thank you.
Which button? The one I'm pushing? Okay. Let me- Oops.
As we pause for technical difficulties. Okay, we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, these two. Maybe we can call those two up together. Hmm? Mm-hmm. Okay. Groovy.
So thank you, Chair. This is a request for modifications to a new construction and special exception approval. This was first approved last January, and the applicant is proposing amendments to the approvals. And at that point in time, it was for new construction and special exceptions, which are now considered modifications. And the proposal was for a new single-family home in the Capitol Hill Historic District, and the property is zoned RMF 45. There were 2 special exceptions requested, and the modifications proposed include further reduction to the north side yard setback from the original proposed 7 feet to 4 feet, which is consistent with the setback for single-family homes in the RMF 30 and RMF 35 districts, but that is increased for the RMF 45. There's an additional modification to reduce the distance of the driveway from the adjacent property line, and then there are a number of design changes and material changes that I'll highlight. So first of all, on the site plan, you can see the proposed 3-foot decrease in the side yard setback. The applicant is also proposing to relocate the garage from the front facade, or remove the garage from the front facade and have a carport that's located to the rear. And then the driveway would be 4 feet from the adjacent property line. Some changes that are proposed on the front facade, as I mentioned previously, the garage is removed. There's also a decrease in the height on the left side of the facade from 33 feet 9 inches to 28 feet 2 inches. And then this is 29 feet 10 inches on that right portion. They're also proposing to remove the 3rd floor terrace, and then they're changing the front entry feature. On the north facade, the changes are also highlighted. There's a change in the location of the windows, a change in the material, and then a change in the rear patio terrace area. On the south facade, there are some similar changes with changes to the window patterns. There's also the entrance, a new entrance, and then the rear carport. And then there are some additional metal panels that are located on this facade. On the rear facade, there are changes to the window pattern and materials. And then also with that retaining wall, there's a metal railing on top of the retaining wall and along the south side of the driveway. So as I mentioned before, these is a request for amendments to the original approval from last year. There are the 2 modifications that were originally requested plus an additional modification, and then the changes to the design that I highlighted with the overall square footage, the design and material changes, the removal of the street-facing tandem garage, and then replacement of that with the 2-car carport to the rear. And so staff is recommending approval of the modifications to the proposal with the condition that's listed in the staff report. And so then here's the recommendation. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant does not have a presentation, but is available for questions.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? He's waving a presentation? He was waving, and then he's a presenter. Okay, that's good. I had a couple questions. One was, do you own the townhome next door?
We do not.
Okay. And which the only relevance to me was, are they complaining about any of these changes? Does the neighborhood care? And the other one, why carport instead of a garage? Everyone wants a garage.
Well, as we were looking at it, we were trying to find ways to make the interior layout work a little bit more sensibly for the quality of space while we were making the other changes to try to make some budgetary realignments. The upper floor that we originally had proposed with the upper terrace constituted more developable square footage than we wanted to spend once we started getting it out into bid. So.
But at some later point, the owner could put in a garage door. If you're going to spend this much money, you're going to have a nice car, and you're going to want a garage.
Yeah. Well, conceivably, the thought with it was that the tandem garage was less convenient for us in the long term. And with it being sort of lower and sort of shielded and covered, obviously, by the actual residence, it seemed like it was a sensible compromise for us.
Okay. Any other questions? Great. Well, that was easy. Thank you. You may step down. And I'm sure we're not going to have any rebuttals or anything, so why don't we go ahead and close the public hearing? I don't have any comments, do I? Oh, we haven't done the public hearing yet. Sorry. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak? I don't have any cards on this one. That's why I jumped immediately to close this thing.
And we don't have any emails at this time.
Okay. Then now I'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Or would you like to make a motion? I can't make the motion.
Well, if no one has comments, concerns, I'll make a motion. Based on the information presented and the discussion, I move that the commission approve this application at 237 North Almond Street with the conditions listed in the staff report, with no further modifications.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. All right, so let's go ahead and we have the motion and we're going to vote. And let me get my voting page here. John, yay or nay?
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Kenton,
Yes.
Carlton,
Yes.
Amanda? Yes. Groovy. And I'll say yes as well. Passes. Thank you. You can go home now and try and find your luggage. All right, the next one. Where did I put it here? Trolley North, new construction at approximately 675 East, 500 South, which we all like to call the Xerox building. Mark Isaac of Pinion 8 Consulting. Our staff person to present tonight is definitely Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Spiffy.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners and Chairperson DeLay. Let me just get this going. There's a, like before. Oh.
Ta-da.
Uh-oh. There we go. All right, good evening. This is a request for new construction at approximately and generally 675 East, 500 South, and it is located within the Central City Historic District. Just some details about the request. It is, like I said, in the Central City Historic District. It is also within the TSA UNC zoning district. Some standards that we reviewed going over this were the zoning standards, the new construction standards, the design guidelines, And there's some requested modifications with this application, specifically a maximum setback for a corner side yard, building entrances, the number of building entrances on a street-facing facade, and the maximum length of a building, or width, length. And staff is recommending approval with conditions because the project generally meets the relevant standards. So for some context, here is the location of the project. It's bound on 3 sides by public streets. This map is a little off. It's telling you that there's a property here, but that is actually public right-of-way on Green Street. Green Street, 7th East, and 500 East are on 3 sides of this property, and to the north, there is the modern display warehouse that you recently approved for the Station 424, and the Molloy Mansion, historic building, the only historic building on the block face in this context. For some photos, we can see what's going on here. Here's a view of the project site. It's the old Sitla building, Xerox building as people call it. And I'm not old enough to remember that, so yeah, just showing off my youth, sorry. Okay. And then also Big Daddy's Pizza, I don't remember Feldman's, or the ice cream place either. So I'm really out of the loop, and I apologize.
It was very good.
I can imagine.
Okay.
So that's what's happening on the site. Here's another shot of the Sitla building and the adjacent Molloy Mansion. Here is the Big Daddy's Pizza site. And as discussed in the report, both properties are listed as non-contributing within. Questions? Okay. I need your full attention. Okay. So both properties are listed as non-contributing within the district. And specifically with this Big Daddy's Pizza, the most recent survey of the Central City Historic District listed it as a contributing structure because it fell into the period of significance that was expanded with that survey. The applicant submitted a request to have that reviewed again. Neither of these decisions were reviewed through public process. So you have the original survey and this one as well. The decision was done through administratively. Here's some more views of Green Street. You can see that currently the parking garage goes right up against the public right-of-way. And across the street is the recently completed Liberty Square multifamily development. Some more shots of that multifamily, providing a very nice neighborhood-like context. A site plan of the project. As you can see here, the building fills up the entirety of the space. It is right up to the property line. In most cases, some areas it is set back. Some things I want to point out. Along Green Street, it is set back 10 feet to accommodate a fire lane. And in its place, the applicant has placed this pedestrian walkway, a sidewalk. Along the 700 East, there is a change in the vertical plane of the facade. It is set back further than the building on the north half. The south half is set back 10 feet. And on the ground floor, the uses include retail in basically where Big Daddy's Pizza was, a lobby in yellow, leasing office in blue, and then residential units along that corner. Here's a view of the upper floors and the amenity space that fills in up at the 4th floor. So this is the 4th floor and above. Some elevations. You can see this is the 7th East elevation. There is an attempt to mitigate the length of the facade through building massings, vertical plane changes, and material changes. You can see here they've tried to split these two forms into two separate masses, and the ground floor excuse me, the bottom 3 floors are bound with brick, and the design is supposed to emulate, and the applicant can speak more on the design, but to emulate commercial facades in the vicinity. Here is the south facade, the widest facade, and they have done even more to separate the length by putting in this 2 separate masses. They have a break on the upper stories of the building, a break in the materials. Green Street, same idea, change in vertical plane and change materials. And on the north facade, this is up against the Station 424 and the, Modern Display Building, as well as the Molloy Mansion. The line between those two is approximately here, where the materials change. So the brick up, that is the adjacent to the Molloy Mansion property, and the darker cinder block sized veneer is towards the back. And the ventilation here is all on this half of that north facade for the parking garage that kind of fills up this podium. Here's some details of the brick. The attempt is to kind of reflect the brick on the trolley square block, both the new and the old brick there, with the dark colored brick and the white mortar. There are a few things I want to go over here. Now, while the proposal does generally meet the standards, staff did work with the applicant and brought forth quite a few comments that in some cases were not addressed, but in a perfect scenario they would have been addressed, but that's not what they wanted to do for this proposal. And so specifically, excuse me, there's this blank wall on the north facade, and staff wanted to see more variety in that facade, trying to soften that hard edge. And I'll get to some illustrations here that show what I'm talking about. And the applicant's response was the brick veneer along that facade adjacent to the Molloy Mansion. Another thing that staff asked was to set back and step back that north wall for light and for character, to be able to step down the building to the adjacent property, as well as to set it back, because it can be a little crowding. The zoning standards do allow what they've proposed, but the commission can modify those standards if they feel it's not meeting one of the standards of the new construction applications. Let's see. Then there's a lack of doors on the ground floor. The initial application had doors along Green Street and along 500 South, but because of issues with security, grading, and encroachment onto the fire lane, they pulled those doors and have asked for this modification for the design standard of the 40 feet spacing between each door. And then there is a utility box on 700 East that staff brought up, and I'm sure Mackie's sick of me sending her emails with these concerns, one of the applicants. It is screened from view, and they have said that they're unable to move this box, and I'll kind of point these things out in the illustration. So specifically, here's that north facade. On top is the initial proposal. You can see this long concrete wall. Now, to be fair, about this point is it against the Modern Display property, the Station 424 property, but there's still a lot of concrete here, and they provided some changes, specifically this brick veneer that softens it a little bit, but staff asked for things beyond this, but this is what they proposed, and it does meet the zoning standards, and it's even beyond what the zoning standards require. Over here, you can see there is a box right here, and it will be screened with a hedge and with a wall. That was added later into the proposal, and staff asked for it to be moved, but they said it was unable to be moved. Other things include this step back here. This is what they came up with for that step back and setback. This is the property line right here, and it steps back probably 8 to 10 feet, and then back up. And You can see here, there's a part that juts out further, but that is, again, adjacent to the modern display Station 424 property. So we'll go through these requested modifications pretty quick so we can get through tonight. The first one is the maximum setback from Green Street. That is required by a fire lane, and staff is very much in concurrence with this request that it's good for Green Street. It provides the pedestrian infrastructure that connects 500 South to the nearby track station. They provided lighting, furniture, shade. These things really improve the experience along Green Street. When I went out and took pictures of this property, there were so many cars going up and down that street, Trader Joe's shoppers and whoever else, but it's good to have a place to walk. So that's that request. The next one, maximum facade length. You can see, I talked about these already. They're doing a change in vertical plane along 700 East by stepping back half of the building. 500 South, they have changes in massing, so it looks like two buildings. And Green Street, they have a change in vertical plane as well as changes in materials. Those things help to break up the mass of those wide facades. And so within the standards, staff found that while the building is massive, there are attempts to break up the size of the building. And again, if the commission disagrees, they have the opportunity to make a different finding. And then building entrances, and I have some illustrations of that. There needs to be a door every 40 feet in the TSA UNC district, and the proposal does not meet this standard, and they said because of slope and topography, security, and then encroachment into the fire lane. So along here, this is the 700 East facade. There is no door within this space. Specifically, they cited the fact that the topography is kind of steep there, and to put in a door here would not be ADA accessible. And so there's no door there, but they provided additional glass and transparency here beyond what is required. Same thing over here. It's topography over on this side, as I illustrated in my report. Over on this end, these are residential units, and security was the cited reason for not having doors along this facade for the residential units. Same thing along Green Street. So staff's recommendation is to approve the project with a condition because it generally meets those new construction standards. It meets both the zoning and design standards if this is approved with those modifications, and it complies with and fulfills master plan policies. So the recommended condition is that, the plan should show compliance with new construction standards, and delegating some of these things to staff that they come later through the building process when they get engineered drawings, specifically site and building services, the exact location of utilities, the location of landscape structures and design of those landscape structures so that they are in line with the building, lighting details of the building, and then signage location does require a separate certificate of appropriateness because it requires a separate permit. But they've provided some illustrative signage that they plan on putting on the building. So basically, if there is a request to table or add a condition to this request, I just ask that the commission specify which aspects of the proposal need modification and refer to the new construction standard that needs to be met through the modification. You don't need to redesign, but I just ask that you're specific in the standard and what's missing in the project. And with that, I'll pass it on to the applicants. They are here. Mark Isaac, I believe, is presenting, but we also have the design team and the developer. And I'll let them introduce themselves.
Great, thank you. Would the applicant come forth? Turn on your microphones and make sure they're very close to you so that we can hear you to record this, and please introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name's Mark Isaac. I'm a planning consultant and an owner's representative to Altiterra Real Estate Group. Beside me is Craig Zigbee with Altiterra Real Estate. Maki Mosley is our design lead with BKV Architects. And then Michael Augustine is a principal with Altiterra Real Estate and represents ownership. And they're here more specifically to answer specific questions of you all. First and foremost, thank you for your time, Commission, senior staff. Thank you for the tremendous work. Aaron, you're a pleasure to work with at the city. We are excited to be here. We've spent a tremendous amount of time with senior staff and with codes and conditions and criteria with 3 different specific zones in mind. We had the Central City Community Master Plan. We had the TSA UNC Overlay District. We have the Historic Landmark District. And then we actually have that Forth South sort of change in plan in design review for that was approved in 2012. So there's a lot of overlay of codes, conditions, texts, and zones in this area. And I can assure you that we've spent a tremendous amount of time with the senior staff and with our design team to make certain that we met all current codes, condition, and criteria in the area, with the exception to the 3 design guideline modifications that we're requesting tonight. Aaron spent a little bit of time with it, so just in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of them, but the real request is your consideration of these design modifications. The first one, more specific to Green Street, obviously, is an increase in setback from 5 feet to 10 feet. The best part about this setback change for us, quite frankly, is we're building a 10-foot sidewalk, lit bollards, and improved landscaping down that street, and actually meeting every code and condition across our city with regards to improving cross-block pedestrian access. I've had the good fortune of working with this city on a lot of projects, and that is a very, very high criteria and priority for senior administration and staff, is to improve some of the massing in these long blocks and crosswalk access, and we're thrilled with the changes that we made. We think it's a much safer environment for pedestrians, and then for all the obvious reasons for the residents in the area, the connectivity to the light rail transit station, the adjacent residential uses, and the adjacent businesses in the area is all much improved. So that's request number 1. Request number 2 is the size or the length of our facades. You are all keenly aware that if you exceed 200 feet, you need commission review and commission approval of any exceptions over 200 feet. One of our lengths is 207 and the other is 210. I think you have a pretty good sense for how we're trying to break up the articulation and the massing materiality, increased glazing on the pedestrian scape of 5th and 7th East more specifically. We're a little reticent to do a tremendous amount of access and activity off of that Green Street, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But the one facade that is of greater length is the 295 feet that fronts 500 East, and I hope that you're willing to accept the logic of breaking it into what appears to be 2 separate and completely different buildings. We've provided a landscaped plaza area in between that area. Granted, the building is all continuous, but we worked very diligently to try and break up that streetscape and that massing, and quite frankly, a far improved circumstance from what the Xerox building currently has in the area. And then the final component to our design modification request, as you know, with Aaron's work, is the reduction in the doors and the door locations. We have very specifically put door locations in place to accommodate our retail settings on the ground floor that front 7th East, and our amenity center and retail opportunities that front 5th East. We are reluctant to put additional doors on the Green Street side, that aforementioned expansion or setback increase request. More of it is for control point access into the building. It's more for security. We have a large contingency of young adults young individuals, a lot of them living on their own, and we just think it's a better and a safer circumstance and a better control point mechanism for us in operations. And then on the 7th East frontage, the doors, we have a slope condition, and it creates a difficult opportunity with creating ADA landings. For those of you that aren't aware, they're going to be a big design or building code change with ADA and Type 1 units that our state legislative body will start to review in the next couple weeks. We're not certain how much of that new building code will be adopted, but it actually increases your turn radiuses and your wheelchair access and radiuses for all ADA to 67 or 69 feet of radius, and it actually is fairly challenging with any kind of slope or grade. It's a very warranted change in ADA, but in this particular circumstance, it continues to create some design challenges for Maki and her team. So thank you again. I hope that's sort of a basic understanding of our ask and our request. It's specifically for the 3 design modifications. We are incredibly confident that we meet all other code criteria and conditions, and we've been very diligent in making sure that we did so. And now we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. All right, time now for commissioners to ask questions. And I have several. I'll start off. You were talking about 2 separate masses. The key word to me is mass. This is one giant mass box, and to me, personally, seems way out of scale. How do you justify modifications to the grade change?
You want to address that, Maki, on the design side, the modifications to grade change in what regard?
On one of the, I'm not sure which one of these I can pull up and show you, but you were talking about the grade change. I believe it was on 5th.
Well, and again, it goes back to the size and the scale and the length and the slope, is that you actually have physical slope in these streetscapes, and you don't realize it when you're looking in 10 and 20-foot increments, but when you're looking in 100-foot increments,
Can you
there's
please
pretty
speak directly
significant-
into your microphone?
Pretty significant difference.
From 7th East to 5th East, it's how much of a grade?
I don't know grade break in.
I don't know exactly either, but
It's about 7 feet, I believe.
7 feet? Okay.
Please, again, speak directly into the microphone.
Yes.
Thank you.
What are the building materials? I was confused on that. You showed me.
Materials are, lower levels are mostly bricks.
And what colors of bricks? Several different colors?
Yes, we have 3 different colors.
Okay.
And to create the lightness on the upper floors have metal panel, composite panel, and fiber cement.
Okay. The ground floor, to me, looks like a podium, but I believe you were saying it's not a podium?
Well, podium is between the 3rd floor and 4th floor,
Okay.
where the pool courtyard is.
Okay. I have an issue. I understand times 10 the safety issues. I struggle with the lack of doors, however. That's also a safety issue, not to have enough doors to escape from or escape to. And Green Street is a scary kind of street at night, I must say. It's going to be lit, hopefully at night, by this building's exterior, and during the day, it'll still be a little scary down there. That wasn't really a question. You have 382 parking spaces, which seems like a million. How many EV spaces are there?
20%.
20%, okay, 20%.
Yeah, meeting codes and conditions.
And your relationship to Green Street, I have a struggle with in these designs. But I'm going to let my fellow commissioners jump in here with any questions. I have a whole lot of comments here from the public ready to go. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I've got a bunch. First of all, for staff, how old is the Sitla building?
It's outside of the period of significance of the district
What's the period of significance?
to about 1963,
Okay. But
1980.
1980. this might not be exactly cogent, but still I'm bothered by taking down a relatively new, completely viable building. That's not the way our society should be going. Was there any thought ever given to trying to integrate that and adapt it into your project?
Spend a lot of time going.
Yeah, our first intent was to utilize the existing building and build along it and around it. The viability of turning that building into a residential building, given the nature of its structure, given the floor plate, we spent quite a bit of time and money going down that route, and by the time we exited that process, we realized it's not a plausible option.
Hey,
That was the original intent was to do that.
yeah, fair enough. I think a lot of the questions that I've got, and perhaps fellow commissioners, is one, you're presenting us what appear to be nearly full-on contract documents. You've got plans, you've got wall sections noted, you have detailed stuff, yet your floor plans do not punch out and allow us to really understand the claims you're making for the building. I don't see the Fifth South facade from these plans as having that two-building feel. Yeah, I can go to a perspective, and you see it happening above, but the first, 3 stories above grade appear to be pretty much solid. That goes all the way around the building. Your drawings also lack any sort of streetscape comparative elevations. This is a bloody big building. And as I went by there today, we approved Liberty, the Liberty project a few years ago. That seemed pretty big. That will be dwarfed by what you've got. Likewise, even the new Station 424 is a whole different scale. You know, certainly you're meeting code, you're meeting zoning in your size and your height. But I think it'd be helpful to see really a direct comparison of building heights, because there's going to be a lot of opposition just because we don't know. And the opposition might be overcome by adequate information, or it might be supported. But I'm a little...
Commissioner Peters, let me just
Yes,
ask
sir.
you a question, because I want to make sure that we can respond to this
Sure.
appropriately.
Sure.
Do you want us to better demonstrate scale and sort of a massing that compares it to Trolley Corners, to Trolley Square, to Liberty that's directly east of us, and to Liberty directly west of us? Because the Xerox building, for example, is 75 feet or 76 feet high, and this application is 85 feet high, so we're 9 feet higher than current condition. Give me a little bit better sense, because I'm absolutely certain that we're going to be able to help you get a better, clear visual if we know what it is that you're actually after. We have no qualms with it. I want to make sure that I do it right for you.
Okay, good. In the past, several years ago, we started asking applicants to provide a streetscape of the facades. Now, I don't think this is a technical requirement, but
It is a technical requirement.
so
yeah.
perhaps I missed it in the drawings, but I don't see anything that takes me down 7th East looking west, seeing the various heights of your building. 5th South looking north. I'd like to see what's going on there. That would be helpful.
And the
Also-
sign, I want to see where the sign is.
Yeah, the sign, yeah. I'm looking at your A103 floor plan, and that's great. I can do my materials takeoffs, and I can find my wall sections and so forth, but it's not, I mean, at the level you're presenting to us, I think this is more presentation drawings that we're looking for. I don't really give a damn if there's 28 feet 6 inches between grid line C and D. You know, I'd like to see what's really happening. So that's just kind of a picky thing.
Giving some context.
Is this what you're after with 3D and the live rendering work? Or just help me understand it, Commissioner, because we're going to do this right for you?
It needs to be backed up with your floor plans. You know, these are artist misconceptions. You know, they can be as accurate or as inaccurate. I know because I do them.
These have been specifically rendered from our floor.
Well, I'm sure they have, but still, they need to be, I'm not seeing the two-building feel that was referenced. And so when I was reading through your documents, I went back in and say, okay, that'll show on the plans. I'm not seeing that clearly. Maybe I needed to spend more time going through them, but the level of detail you're providing on the plans exceeds the information that is cogent to what we're trying to do here.
Okay. The streetscape study is the plans with the white outlined building.
Can you direct me, please?
I don't have the report in front
I
of me.
see an amenity deck area, which is irrelevant to what we're doing.
In their plans, if you go, keep going.
Please give me a page number.
Yeah,
I'll,
21 of 1.
Page 21.
124, is that what you're looking at, Ken?
29. They technically meet the.
But you know what, that actually reinforces the lack of a, the facade on down above grade level. So I'm gonna trying to get off the picky things. I have a problem with your lack of door openings and your reasoning being ADA related and slope. I mean, that's a design problem. That's not an ordinance and zoning problem. You know, ADA needs to be complied with as well as zoning. So I think pushing it off and saying the slope and zoning are the problem here is being a little bit, I don't know, a little bit relaxed as designers. Likewise with the over 200-foot facades. You know, I think you can, I know you're trying to do this building so that it is profitable and provides a good presence, provides a nice living space for people, is a good presence to the community. But the way it's coming in here, the way I'm seeing it is that you're just trying to push every limit as far as you can in order to optimize your building and not providing a give and take with the community here. And so I've been talking too long, but
No, you're fine.
I'm
Commissioner Peters, if I may, so the streetscape renderings that the applicant pointed to on page 29 of their submittal aren't necessarily acceptable as streetscape renderings. This would be considered more of a massing study than streetscape renderings. We need flat elevation studies of the various heights and massings along all facades that this building impacts. So thank you for raising that.
that's a good clarification. I'm sorry I didn't explain that well.
So not just the streetscape of the facade, but, what? I'm trying to make notes here.
Did I say but?
That in general?
Like an
Yeah.
orthogonal
Yeah.
elevation view as
Yes.
you go down the street.
Okay,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, fifth south.
Grades and everything we talked about.
Yep.
okay, good.
I'll just wrap up. My concerns are openings
I thought we do.
and facade length. I applaud you for moving back on Green Street. I should have started with something positive. You know, I think that will be an asset to the street. Yet at the same time, I think openings there, Liberty across the street, they have openings on that street. That'll serve to engage the whole street, especially with the beautiful pedestrian walkway you're proposing. So my issues are twofold with two of your requests, facade length and openings. I don't have a problem with the setback. And then just more clarity in presentation and, illustrating some breaking down further of that building mass as you can.
And super
Thank you.
appreciative of your comments, Commissioner, because it gives us better sense for what we need to provide.
Can you explain to me where the white car is on this? There are two people standing, walking underneath a tree just behind it, and there are 4 brick bays back down that street. What is that? You see where the two people are standing?
It's facade treatment. The facade treatment, yeah.
That
it's brick.
facade, the north-facing facade, what
That's the
are
back
those?
end of the garage.
The back end of the garage, okay.
At this.
Yeah, because that is a horrific mess. And that is so not friendly. You know, one of the groovy things, I was a planning commissioner when we did Trolley Square, and I was so anti-Whole Foods, sorry. But one thing that just kept coming up was the walkability of this neighborhood and how friendly this neighborhood was and how Trolley Square was just a friendly place to be walking. And our streets are huge and it's scary to cross them, but when you're walking around those blocks, I don't know if I'd want to walk around this building. It looks scary to me, just because of the facades and the lack of openings. And I know a lot of places that we've seen through planning and through this commission where people are now going through the block or they're presenting little interior parks and what have you. But that side, for example, to me is just, I don't know, I can't make any suggestions to you. I just personally hate it. But we have, Kenton brought up streetscape of the facade, building plans for that, lack of door openings and ADA issues. Commissioners, any other thoughts? Because I think what I'd like to do is encourage us to table this for a meeting or two until you can kind of rework this and bring it back to us. This is not a killer deal. We just have a lot of input for you, and we have a ton of people wanting to give input here. So, Commissioners, any other questions?
It's not so much of a question, but can you turn to 21 of 124, please? Sheet 21 of 24. It's the
I have the presentation, not the report on here, but
Which
You don't have
page
a
is
number?
that, Commissioner Varela?
it's a sheet that looks like it's level 4 amenity deck.
Level 4.
like a site plan view?
Mm-hmm. That one there. All right, when I look at that, and it's a lot of what Kenton has just said, you know, at least on Plan South, there's a break in the building. And me personally, I don't have a problem with 200 feet, 207 feet, 210. That's all. What I do have a bit of an issue with was when I look at this plan and Plan East, Plan North, Plan West are all, there's not a lot of breakup. On Plan South here, you know, at this lower level, there's a bit of a breakup and you can see into the building. So now when you go now please to, hang on just a second, I'll get you, these were the massing diagrams that you have. Yeah, I think the massing diagrams that you have, it's the 4 white massing diagram sheets. Those show very, very clearly that you know, the image to the upper left, yeah, keep going down. It's about 7 sheets, 8 sheets.
This is the presentation and not the report.
Okay. So
I'm
in the
looking at
report,
it,
the massing
Commissioner.
diagram shows very clearly that, you know, the one elevation at the upper left, there's a base, there's a 3 or 4 story base. I understand that. I understand all of the things that you're saying about the street and the changes of elevation and so forth. But it breaks up the building so that it's not just a mass all the way across at that 200 plus feet at all the other 3 elevations. That I think is really telling. And I think if a little bit more is spent with breaking that mass, you know, in and out and looking into courtyards will make that building feel less like a block than individual buildings, if that makes sense.
And Commissioner, I'm following your train of thought.
Yeah.
Spot on,
I mean,
because I
seriously,
have it in front of me.
The one image that I'm looking at, it's this set of drawings. The ones at the upper left, yeah. At the upper left, yeah, it's a big building, but it's cut up and there's multiple buildings. I laud you for the multiple brick colors and the striation that you have in the brick. That's good. That makes it look like it's multiple pieces of it. That's great. It's just, when you have the long masses and when you have a building that's 200 feet and you're stepping back, you know, 4 feet, 6 feet, it's not enough. It feels like just a little. There you go.
Okay. No, I pulled them up.
The 3 images at the upper right, lower right, and lower left. Those are what I'm responding to, and those are big masses. What you've done in the upper left, that starts breaking the building up, and it feels a bit more like multiple buildings as opposed to one big block. That was what I was responding to. That first image that I was alluding to, the amenity deck looks like if you're actually in the amenity deck, and it was about 6 drawings prior to that one. It just feels like that amenity deck, exactly. it's going to be dark in there on the lower level with 4 or 5 levels of building surrounding it. And so I'm not seeing any daylight, sunlight piercing into the interior. And I think that might be an issue for you.
That would be solid ice this time of year.
Well, it's, those are the two things when I was looking at it architecturally that really stuck out to me.
Great.
The three other items about, and I agree with Kenton about the 5 feet to 10 feet, on the sidewalk, fantastic. Exceeding the 200 feet, I don't have a tremendous issue with that, other than moving the building back and forth and having some openings. And so those would be my comments. Babs.
All right, commissioners, any other questions, or we can move to the public hearing?
I have a question, actually. I was curious about your parking count. How did you arrive at that? It looks like it's about 2 stalls per unit, regardless of size.
Yeah, the nature of the project is student housing, so we arrive at it based on a ratio per bedroom count.
Okay. So you're anticipating a higher than typical auto load for every given unit?
Even though it's right by the track station to the university. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has cars, so we follow the market versus what we would love to see down the road and a lack of cars.
Yeah, I'll make one comment. Obviously, there have been a number of comments from the commissioners. I'll add one more, probably anticipating what I think some of the public comments are going to be with respect to the historic building that is adjacent to this. That building is, as was noted, the last historic structure on the block. And I know in previous conversations there's been some debate about the historical context of the block. I tend to be on the side that the historical context of this block happens to be chain restaurants and strip malls and parking lots at this point. So I don't think that building alone necessarily drives this. However, I will say that from a historic preservation standpoint, since it is the last building on the block, there is an opportunity here for this building to help highlight rather than overshadow what its neighbor is from a historical preservation perspective. And while we don't have the elevations, I know what the proximity to the building is. It looks like there was about 9 feet, 10 feet. It wasn't very far. I couldn't read it because it was a little blurry on the PDF in the presentation. But I would suggest that it would be worthwhile taking some time to consider how to frame this building in that context of the neighbors such that it doesn't overwhelm, but rather augments. That'd be the comment I would add.
I love that, highlight versus overshadow. I mean, is this the building where people are going to drive by and go, damn, I love that building. Damn, that's a good-looking building. Or, oh, look, another box. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this point in time, and I have many, many comments. The first one, though, I think I'm going to, you may step aside. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first comment I'm going to do is from Cindy Cromer. Cindy, do you want me to read this into the record?
I'm happy to come up and.
Okay.
Thank you. My comments tonight could have been very different. The initial proposal, as you've heard, was to have an adaptive reuse in the Xerox building, which I anticipated would become contributory to the district in another 10 to 12 years. It really does fit with Trolley Square in the industrial nature of the neighborhood. And the Findle's Ice Cream building survived in the original drawings for the project, although it was engulfed by new construction. Instead, what is before you is a structure out of scale with the trolley barns to the south, out of scale with the infill development to the west, and out of scale with the properties to the east. And when will the Office of Sustainability respond as the city allows massive structures to go to the dump and buildings which have little attention to the environment to replace them? When? For years, developers have been bypassing the economic hardship process, which has a public component. The first case I remember was Bishop Place, but maybe Trolley Square's expansion was first. I'd have to do some research. Developers now simply apply to have a building unlisted as contributory. There is no public process for removing a building for contributory status. None. The ordinance is silent on the subject. The only nice thing I can say about this project is that the treatment of the windows is better than that of similar projects. The cement siding is not appropriate as a building material. The building is too long on the south frontage. The travesty is walling in the Malloy Mansion, formerly Every Blooming Thing. This historic building will provide air and light to the adjacent massive housing complexes and be degraded in return. I'll be back next month with suggestions about how owners of historic properties such as the Malloy Mansion and Ensign Floral should be compensated. Meanwhile, the Commission could at least draft a letter to the City Council stating the obvious, that there is not a public process for removing a structure from contributory status, and owners of contributory structures are being discriminated against. I urge you to request training on the relationship between base zoning and overlay zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. I agree, staff. Let's look into that. That raised my eyebrows. I didn't realize that was the case.
Yeah, if I can just speak to part of Cindy's comment. One thing, we do have a petition currently initiated to look at the H preservation overlay. And one of those things within that petition we're looking at is outlining a process related to contributing status of structures, how discrepancies can be challenged in the process for that, as well as a thorough process for survey adoption and resurvey. So that will be coming forward to the commission sometime this year, hopefully.
Excellent.
The early part of the year.
And in this project, or in this block, the contributing structures, we decided that Big Daddy was not a contributing.
That's correct. It was listed as a contributing structure in our survey, and the applicant submitted an administrative interpretation, and through that process, the applicant also hired a consultant to conduct an ILS survey. And while staff agreed with some of the things in the ILS survey, ultimately the decision to determine that building as non-contributing was due to alterations that had happened to that structure that were not readily apparent just in the reconnaissance level survey. So those things were brought to light with the ILS and the further research that was done on the survey.
Great, thank you. All right, next person to speak, Steve Murdoch, you have 2 minutes. 2. Danelle Murdoch, yes, Danelle. As a matter of fact, Danelle, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people that have deferred to you. So 8 times 2 is 16 plus your 2 gives us 18 minutes for Danelle.
Thank you.
Go.
I appreciate it. First of all, I'm totally freaked out by all of this, and I have to say it, and I'm hoping I'm not going to cry because it's really horrific. I want to thank Aaron Barlow for his time and his help reviewing the Trolley Square North plans. My name is Danelle Murdoch. I am an owner of the historic, what you're calling the Malloy Mansion. We call it the Hancock Mansion. It was occupied by Hollister Hancock for 76 years. The Malloys occupied that mansion for 15 to 20. Hollister Hancock died there. She left that mansion to Fendel's Ice Cream to care for it. Fendel's Ice Cream went under. Fendel's daughter opened the ice cream store in 2006. Whoops. They lost everything, had to sell to Big Daddy's. Big Daddy's separated the building, the 2 buildings. 2 daughters owned them or were inheritance of them. And Every Blooming Thing left because they didn't have enough parking. So that's kind of the backstory, and I'm sorry. If my time could start now, I'd really appreciate it. I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to not approve the proposed plans of Trolley North today and to defend the historic Hancock Mansion from not having an adjacent frontage of the entire east side of Trolley North and not requiring a 30-foot look around and not making our building look and feel like part of a new neighborhood in mass, height, and setback. To use the power the commission has to not allow its structural safety to be challenged so severely and not allow the safety of its occupants to be potentially compromised. I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to look closely at all of the misrepresentations of the proposed Trolley North plans. The site plan is not accurate to the positioning of the front of the historic Hancock Mansion. I wish you would please bring that slide up. It shows our mansion being less than 14 feet from the sidewalk. Our mansion sits back 30 feet from the sidewalk with a rolling grass front lawn, flowers all summer long. We groom and take care of our building. Our initial plan was to paint the building, and then we heard of all of this construction and everything, and we stopped. It is, okay, so my first question is, for the architects and for you, is the rest of the site plan accurate? The proposed 3D models and streetscape study offered of Trolley North are absolutely absurd. It is to the site plan's position, or is it to scale? On the 3D models of the east side of the garage entrance, it's absolutely missing. There's no garage entrance shown on the 7th East side, but yet in the site plans, there's a garage entrance. What else is misinterpreted in Trolley North's plans? Why is the 7th East side not considered the front of Trolley North when the designs reflect more of a front of a building with the entire ground floor as large storefront windows and doorways? To create a sense of security and garage access is what they claim in their last page of their proposal from December 8th, which I received December 23rd before holiday break. Thank you. Why are the doors at retail on 7th East allowed and absolutely possible when the doors that you are talking about for the occupants of the building not allowed? I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to see Trolley North's intentional lack of being a good neighbor and having a dismissive approach to the historic Hancock Mansion by giving what it's called its backside and a 1-inch build from the property line. This is the only non-setback floor area, main floor area. By assuming it will be granted use of the historic mansion's open property, both vertically and on land. Interestingly, it also refers to the west side, Green Street, as being its backside in their proposal. How can there be two backsides? There are 4 sides to this building, and everyone should be addressed. How does Trolley North plan to build its north side? How do they plan to do it? All from the interior of their property? What kind of precautions will be set in place as they would be digging closer and deeper to the mansion than ever before? Their depth is about 18 feet, at less their proposal to our property line, saying it's 9 feet, a few inches. There is a marked line between the buildings at 10.5 feet. I sent a PDF on Tuesday. I hope you had a chance to review it. Where will the construction equipment and cranes be placed? How does Trolley North propose to apply the cast stone coping? That's what they're calling the bricks on our side. Cast stone coping. It's not bricks. And split face CMU to the 145 feet wide and 27 feet tall wall that will span the property line between us without the use of the mansion's active driveway or property. How does Trolley North plan on maintaining the massive 145 wide wall and 27 feet tall wall from graffiti and wear without being on the historic mansion's active driveway and property? Does Trolley North have plans to place scaffolding or use the mansion's property to dig, build, construct, or maintain their north side? How is the massive wall considered human scale or public friendly? Why no lower home fronts facing the mansion that offer 9 beautiful windows, with 7 of those windows being 8 feet tall to its south side? That's what our mansion offers. Wouldn't having lower home fronts on the north side of Trolley help the security of both it and our mansion? Wouldn't it be more neighborhood friendly? I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to see that by allowing Trolley North to build and dig 1 inch from our shared property line, that it would endanger the historic Hancock Mansion by 1, digging and disturbing the ground 10 feet from the mansion could potentially bring part, half, or all of the mansion down. We would like a survey of the property line done to determine where the true property line is, and we've asked for a surveyor to come out. It's just we're too close to the holidays. 2, by building 1 inch from the Hancock Mansion. This will render the Hancock Mansion's tight driveway unsafe and unusable during construction. The average SUV is almost 7 feet wide, leaving 18 inches on either side of the vehicle to clear the mansion and the 18-foot straight down deep dig. Why should we be denied the use of our driveway and our personal safety when a fair and neighborly setback could be given? Currently, on the east side, they have, let's see, well, let me stay where I'm at. Potential roof debris, snow removal from the upper roofs onto the mansion's property will be an issue. 4, it will cause safety issues when turning into our driveway from 7th East, requiring a tight turn to avoid the building mass that will only be 10 feet away from the sidewalk and dead on our property line. That has traffic coming behind us at 40 miles an hour. Why no allowance for green space to Trolley North to soften its position from the Hancock Mansion? Also, this poses a fire hazard for the mansion itself, as well as both Trolley North and Station 424, by limiting the access and exit to the mansion's property by vertical encroachment. Why is this not considered? We have fire access being considered for Green Street. Why isn't it considered for us? Is Trolley North using type 3 construction with U-shape and upper flooring being mainly out of wood? Are we being set up for another Sugar House apartment fire incident? Setting back Trolley North 12 feet or more lessens the risk of this affecting the historic Hancock Mansion by fire, or at least having greater access for firefighters to the mansion's property and Trolley North's property. On Trolley North's 700 East facade, you have the code section 21A 37.050F and table 21A 3706, that this cannot be longer than 200 feet. If you look at the site plan, it's not 210 feet, it's 212 feet. The 12 feet matters to us. Let me tell you what's going on with that 12 feet and what it's being used for. It's being used to pull out their building and provide a 10-foot setback on the 3rd floor of Trolley North, which is not close to or even enough to ease the 79-foot jutting up of Trolley North to the historic Hancock Mansion. And you talked about ice being in that interior. We will be in ice all winter long. Also, this extra 12 feet adds over 65 parking stalls. That's what this 12 feet is being used for. 65 parking stalls on 3 levels that would not be hard for Trolley North to give up, as their plan currently has 382 parking stalls planned for a building that requires none. Please remember that Trolley North is a transit-oriented development and has received many benefits because of this. Ask Trolley North to be good neighbors to the historic Hancock Mansion and set back a minimum of 12 feet. Why is Trolley North allowed to benefit of all of the benefits of a high-density build, as well as almost 2 parking spaces per unit in a transit zone? We see light and solar access as being the issue from Trolley North to all of the historic mansion's property. In the Historic Landmark Commission meeting in December 2022, it was mentioned that no laws are offered by the state of Utah to protect our historic home or any structure from receiving general benefits of light. This is absolutely upsetting. There is, however, in the standards and design guidelines for new construction in a historic district, building form and scale, design objective 12144, a new multifamily building should be designed to respect the access to light and privacy of the adjacent buildings. At this point, we don't care about privacy. We would like some light. How is Trolley North even remotely thinking about offering us any light from our south front east corner and the complete south side? We ask the Historic Landmark Commission to please table, not approve these plans until we have a non-biased solar study complete. I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to place a condition on Trolley North's entire north side, below and above ground, to be set back a full 12 feet, if not more. Maybe to, if you look at their 3D cityscapes, streetscape renderings, Those show the property being 40 feet away from our building. All of them. They are put on the edge of Big Daddy's Pizza. They are not put on the property line, and they are unfairly rendered. They are poorly rendered, and it is a horror. I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to set a condition for Trolley North to align its 700 East facade with the front facade of the historic mansion in an adjacent 30-foot setback from the sidewalk of their building. We are 30 feet back. They are saying that they will put columns at the sidewalk's edge. They will have building mass 8 feet away from the sidewalk. In the standard, let's see, there are multiple sections in the standard and design guidelines for new construction in a historic district that justify you asking for this. Let's see. We would also be for, if you set that back, it will be for the safety of Trolley North occupants as a driveway garage on the east side of Trolley North, now follow me, is placed behind a blind spot due to Trolley North buildings shift forward from a 25 and an 1/8 setback of the building. The majority of the mass on the lower 7th East side is set back 25 feet. But at the parking garage, it then juts out to only a 10-foot setback and columns that are against the sidewalk, which will be absolute, you can't see around them. Why is a front yard feel offered to Liberty Square that has many front yards of 9 feet 6 inches to the west on Green Street and not to the historic mansion that actually has a deeper front yard of 30 feet? Why is Liberty Square offered lower home fronts and the mansion is not? Why was the decision to move the building's column to the edge of the sidewalk not considered hazardous to the residents, drivers of Trolley North, as well as the drivers southbound on 7th East going 40 miles an hour, and pedestrians with obstructed views to turn out? Why was the decision to move the building 10 feet from the sidewalk not considered hazardous to the residents, drivers of Trolley North, as well as the drivers southbound on 7th East going 40 miles an hour, and pedestrians? Doesn't placing the columns at the edge of the sidewalk and the building mass 10 feet from the sidewalk creates a forced engagement with the building for pedestrians versus feeling in a charming, somewhat visual, open neighborhood way? Yes, this will truly be a neighborhood with 200 units from Trolley North and 260 units from Station 424. These two developments will bring in a minimum of 500 people with a potential of 1,400 or more. The intention for this neighborhood is to be walkable to the track station. Why is building multiple columns at the edge of the sidewalk on 7th East acceptable for walking traffic? Why is 10 feet on green space, a 10-foot setback for Green Street being offered? Fire zone, walking, all of this is applicable to 700 East. I beg the Historic Landmark Commission to set a condition on new building design for Trolley North that has more charm, and to take cues from historic Trolley Square, Trolley Corners, the building on the northeast corner of 5th South, and the historic Hancock Mansion, versus being a giant box. Consider rounded windows, interesting pitched rooftops, balconies, and creative architecture. Please make this neighborhood quaint and charming. When in the demolition and construction phases of Trolley North and Station 424, which will go on simultaneously, if the historic mansion cracks, falls, or crumbles, who do we speak to? Who do we call? We will have two developers on either side that will happily point the finger at each other and say, it's not our fault your building fell or is damaged, and we're not responsible. It's their fault. We ask that the Historic Landmark Commission help us hold these developers accountable no matter what plans are approved. When Trolley North's architect is asked today about the above questions, If the architect chooses to answer they don't know how to change the existing plans, or acts as if it would be a monumental task and is so overwhelming for them, remember, they are being paid to push this plan through today. It is an architect's job to design and deal with given parameters and requirements. Also, they will likely never live at Trolley North, nor will they ever work or live in the historic Hancock Mansion. They will never be subject to what they are putting up. If this plan, and the architects aren't from Utah, they don't live here, they would have no idea that their drawings were off because they're not from here. And if you are, please say so and let us know where you live. The developers out of Park City. If the plan is approved by the Historic Landmark Commission, the result of what could happen to the historic Hancock Mansion is horrific. Please use your powers and your teeth to defend the historic Hancock Mansion. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Could you give us a copy of that we will distribute somehow?
I sent it over earlier, but I've made some revisions, and I will send it again, Erin.
That would be awesome.
It's in your Dropbox.
Oh, perfect. But not, she said she's updated it.
Multiple changes.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I'll send you the revised.
Thank you. You brought up several very good points and issues, I must say. Do we have anyone else from the public who wishes to speak?
I just want 30 seconds.
Yeah. All right.
The architects stated that this was accurate.
Hey, stop. Got to say your name.
Steve Murdoch.
Thank you, Steve.
Danelle Murdoch's husband is my claim to fame. The architects sat and said this was an accurate depiction. Okay? It is not. That building is 9 feet or 10 feet away from the edge of our building. Those driveway entrances or those garage entrances are not, they don't have a driveway there. Okay? That building is supposed to be on the corner of the property. That is an inaccurate, if you look at the plans, that is misleading. They are misleading you, saying those garages go entrance on the north. They entrance, the garage is on the east side. You can't, our driveway was there. It's just under 10 feet. They can't, that's inaccurate.
So
they're trying to put a post on the corner of our property, and they're not showing that.
Would you say that the entrance there, those are the garage door entrances that are on the edge of, that would be on the south side of your building, so that 382 cars will be coming in those entrances 24/7?
I don't know how they're going to get it. The only way to get to that garage is through our property, how it's drawn there. That rendering does not match what plans they are giving you. They are misleading you. Those garages are on the 7th East. They said it was accurate. It is not accurate.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would just like to point out those are not garages. If we look at the south,
Right.
the
Okay.
north elevation,
Yes, where are the damn garages?
let's take a tour.
Let's take a tour, shall
Okay, what they're looking at there's like some shiny brick on this illustration. Let's go to the illustration.
we? That is the north side of the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are not garages. This is brick. And you can look on the north facade.
So the garages are where? The entrances?
The entrances are on Green Street and 700 East for
Lord have mercy.
vehicular access.
On 700 East.
Aaron?
With that traffic. Oh, that'll be fun.
Go back to that perspective, please, that's showing us the mansion on the north side.
Oh, man.
They're also reducing the number of driveways with this proposal. Make that clear that there were 2 of them, one for Big Daddy's Pizza, one for the Sitla building, and they're using the existing Sitla building driveway.
What does that mean?
so-
I'm sorry. I'm dense.
So what were you, let's,
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
okay, let's
answer up,
go to
Babs.
this elevation, the east elevation. So this is the driveway entrance here.
On 7th East?
On 7th East. There is currently a driveway here, like on the, wherever Big Daddy's Pizza was, there's a driveway on the one side and driveway on the other side.
Now, they're stating that it's 10 feet away.
What
No.
is, oh, no, they're talking about their house.
Okay,
So
that's
that-
okay, thank you.
on the site plan, if I can get to it,
If I can just jump in, we can't have the dialogue back and forth from the commission and the audience.
Sorry.
you can see here, I'm reviewing the plans that are proposed, not the existing details, but this is about 10 feet away from the property line. Their wall is 10 feet away from the property line. About 9 feet and 5 7/8 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Fair to assume that white line that's drawn on the property is relatively close to the property line. There's a white line in Street View that's about
Oh, yeah.
feet south of the mansion.
You talking about Google Street View?
Yeah.
Yeah, the parking line, the parking lot line.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull up Google Maps on here?
Sure.
Hey, well, you've got that plan open. It shows a grease interceptor right there. How is that going to be accessed and serviced if it's not from the mansion's property?
What is specifically the receptor?
I don't know. It's just kind of emblematic of these plans.
Oh, yeah.
They show where the grease interceptor is, yet we're not seeming to get accurate perspectives.
We can probably need to bring the architect up here to explain those details. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to clarify some details, but there are, the renderings are not accurate, but those are not what are reviewed for the project. It's the site plan. It is 10 feet away. It is allowed to be built to the property line according to the zoning regulations. If the commission feels differently, there can be that setback, and staff did recommend setting back and stepping back along this property line.
The 30 feet, like their building?
30, no, from the north property line.
Oh, okay.
Along the 700 East, the setback requirement is that at least 50% of the building needs to be within 5 feet of the property line. So that would require a modification from you to set back the building 30 feet, because that's not permitted by the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance emphasizes and pushes for buildings that are built right up to the property line or close to for a pedestrian type development. And that, what you see.
If I could just jump in for a moment and make a couple comments. So I think the comment from the public about the dimension from the proposed structure to the historic mansion, there's a discrepancy from the perspective provided and the site plan. The site plan indicates just under 10 feet, and the perspective indicates maybe something larger. So I think that's some of the concerns raised from the public. And then just to clarify, if the commission chose to put a condition or table the item with the direction of encouraging the applicant to seek a larger setback or step backs, that's within your purview. Yes, this is a TSA district. Generally, if this was outside of the overlay, they would just need to comply with the TSA zone. Since this is in the overlay, you have the purview to make those changes to what's required in the TSA so that it fits into the historic context. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Also, the public hearing is still open.
I know this.
Okay.
I was waiting for that. And with the public hearing, the applicant certainly has the right to come back and talk to us and rebut. So if we have no other comments from the public, I'd like to bring the applicant back up to rebut anything that was said here, if you wish, or you don't have to. I love rebutting because I like the word. Rebut.
Rebuttal is easy.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Commission, for the time for rebuttal. I think we were writing notes feverishly with citizen comments. We have a lot of different components and pieces to provide you further detail and intel on. We owe it to the next door neighbors, and we owe it to the Commission. And so we are incredibly comfortable if you'll just give us an opportunity to have some time to respond, and then we'll come back to see you as quickly as we can.
So you would be saying a table would be okay with you guys, so you can address these issues?
Yes.
Great. All right. Thank you. That's a perfect rebuttal. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing, commissioners. We get to discuss amongst ourselves here, which I think is very helpful. There's a lot of issues here, and you've done great work. Thank you so far, but we have a lot more to discuss, I think. Commissioners, do you have any other, we've set out a lot of questions for them, and I appreciate the owners of the mansion and their friends coming up with the issues that they have. Anybody have any discussion here?
I have an observation, if I may. So obviously I said my part, and I encouraged to frame and exemplify the historic property rather than overwhelm it, which I think goes to what the public comment was. You know, one thing that I am concerned about, and this goes to Kenton's comments too, is that these plans as they are presented right now are inadequate to make a review and make a comment. I noticed that on page 20 it shows a separation from the adjacent house of 9 feet and 5 7/8. On page 36 it's a different dimension. You know, if they're not consistent on the elevations and the floor plans, the dimensions, especially the adjacency to the adjacent house, there's no way that we can adequately review this. That has to be corrected, and all of those need to be consistent before we can have any opinion, any informed opinion on this project.
Thank you, commissioners. If there are no other comments or questions from commissioners,
Just one thing, please, Babs.
sure.
Thinking about the proximities and the issues with neighbors in the mansion, you know, that's even before some of these things were pointed out. My concern was that this project isn't successful. It's not fair to say not attempting, but it isn't successful yet at being a good neighbor. We do have a part of the ordinance that supports what we'd like them to do as they reconsider the design. That's 12.6. A new building should contribute in a creative and compatible way to the public and civic realm. And I don't think this building is achieving that at this point. So I'd encourage the architects and developers to go back and think about how they might be able to do that.
I'm a little terrified by the person who does go 40 to 50 miles an hour down 7th East, that all of a sudden, going to have to be stopping because people are slowing down to get into that garage. I don't see there's enough clearance on the corner, because I'm constantly going on to 5th South from 7th East, that I will even see anybody walking around that corner. Given the age of that mansion next door and the amount of construction that's going to happen on each side, I think the damn thing's going to fall down, and we don't want that to happen, because this is only one of 2 historic properties on this entire 10-acre block. And we are in danger, in my belief, of turning this into a butt-ugly sugar house block. And that's what's happened in the last few years. And we don't need that. We need something that appreciates Trolley Square and the old trolley barns and the mission style over there. There isn't one thing about this new construction building that is like, wow, isn't that cool? Some factor that really adds to the neighborhood. And yeah, I'm just so tired of having to have this conversation with so many of these developers. Not that they're bad people, it's just this is an easy way to do it. And to have this many parking spaces when you are 1 block away from a track station going to the university, and this is supposed to be basically student housing, I can't support that at all.
Well, I was interested to find out that actually no parking stalls are required in this development. Is that true, Kelsey?
Yeah.
That's correct. However, under the new parking ordinance, we do have the allowance now of no cap for structured parking.
No cats.
Cap.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
depending
so-
on the cat. But yeah, no maximum essentially. So if you structure your parking, you can kind of have as many as you would
Well, it
desire.
seems like that might be a way to, if they couldn't save the Xerox building and taking down a perfectly good structure, even if it isn't quite adaptable to the residential use, what about, and this is probably out of our purview, but if you reduce parking stalls, you're encouraging people to use tracks. Maybe you could then reduce the building size or height and allowing you to reduce the volume a bit. That's probably not the way a developer makes the most money. It's not the most profitable, but it might be a step in the direction of the right thing to do in terms of sustainability and also being a good neighbor.
One of the cool things nobody's mentioned too is this entire corner is covered with really, not old, but really good trees, which makes it nice to walk around there. And I didn't see that landscaping in any of this, if those are going to remain or if they're going to put in more green space.
It's very faint on the site plan. I will bring it up.
Yeah.
While Erin's finding that document, I was just going to add to what you were saying, Kenton, about the parking. Although the commission doesn't have the authority to modify parking, they just either meet it or they don't. You do have the authority to look at the massing of the building, and in this instance, the parking is contributing to that massing. So,
well, that was perfectly said.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that says much better what I was trying to convey.
Yes.
Thanks,
Good
Amy.
job. Any other comments, commissioners? Do we have a motion to table, I think?
I will make one more comment.
Yes.
In your motion, if you're considering tabling, please consider leaving the public hearing open. So when this comes back, additional public comments can be made during that time.
I thought that was just assumed.
It's not.
So that would be in the motion?
Correct.
All right, who's
Thank
making
you.
the motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table this and ask the applicant to come back. And this is based upon 21A 37050D, building entrances, 21A 37050F, maximum length of facade, 12.5, and all the other numbers that go with it, that talks about siting taller buildings away from nearby smaller structures, smaller scale structures. 12.6, new buildings should contribute in a creative and compatible way to the public and civic realm. And that they consider somewhat reducing the mass of the building accordingly, perhaps by removing some parking stalls and trying to give a little bit more definition of the various multi-story parts of the building, reducing the blockiness.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Let's have the vote. Or do we have any comments? Great, let's vote. John?
Aye.
Mike? Kenton?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Amanda? Aye. And I say aye. Thank you. And that is all we have this evening. Thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.
alcohol. In Salt Lake City at the time, sales of alcohol were limited to specially designated saloon districts, but Forestdale was outside of Salt Lake City, and they were able to get the appropriate licenses. The clubhouse, which still stands, was designed by Frederick Albert Hale, the architect behind buildings like the Alta Club and the original Salt Lake City Library. Once the clubhouse was built, it became the social center for many of Salt Lake City's residents. It was such a popular spot that many politicians, golfers, and celebrities of national importance came to play or mingle, including President Taft.